Welcome back to the Relentless Transitions podcast, everyone. I'm Rosalind Keith, one of your co hosts, and I'm here with Teresa, your other co host. How are you doing today, Teresa?
I am doing fabulous. Excited for today.
That's great. So, if this is your first time tuning in to us, welcome. We are a podcast by two accountability partners who are here to discuss life, business, and triumph in all aspects. Today, we're actually going to be talking about what Teresa loves to call, and I've adopted her terminology, is stinking thinking. You know what that is, Teresa?
Yes, thinking. You got to drop, kick it, punt it, and kick it to the curb.
Exactly. So, what we're talking about here is our constant negative barrage of negative thoughts that we have in our. Everyone has them. They're natural. They actually serve a purpose, and they are really just a natural part of human brain matter, I guess is the way to put it. They keep you safe. It was developed, you know, millions of years ago. The need for negative thinking was that it helped you develop your flight or fight instincts. And so, when something felt wrong, you had to assess, and especially millions of years ago, do I run from this animal or do I fight this animal or what? So it's a natural process for humans. It's been in our DNA for millions of years. It's something that we just all have to accept, and that that we can learn to control so that it doesn't control us. And some of the biggest sources of our negative thinking come from our fear of making mistakes, lack of self-confidence. It can come from negative people around you. What do you think, Teresa? Where do you think stinking thinking originates?
Like you said, it really comes from a multiplicity of places. It can come from history, from upbringing.
Yeah.
The people that we hang around, the people we've been around. And I say it often, even just the things that we listen to on the radio and on television, it helps to form our thoughts and impressions of things. So we really have to be careful what we feed ourselves. But the reason that we're talking about stinking thinking today, because that I like to call it stinking thinking, because it's that kind of stuff that kind of keeps you from being able to be successful and reach that triumph. Like we said, we like to talk about life, because we are everyday women, but we talk about business as well, because Rosalind and I are both women entrepreneurs. And then we want to triumph in all areas, and that stinking thinking can hold you back, whether it's in your own business, whether it's working for someone else, or just in your everyday life. It can hold you back to the point that you really just can't move forward. So we have to learn how to actually to control it,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
to recognize it. I believe in identify, acknowledge, and then come up with a solution. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to hopefully share some of the things that have helped us to be able to move forward.
Yeah, that's what this is about. And hopefully you can take something away that really speaks to you, even if it's just one or two methods that Teresa and I will discuss. And hopefully you can take it away and start feeling more in control of that stinking thinking. One of the things I recommend, and I've come to to do is, and this is part of that recognize, right? It's getting to know that negative voice in your head, getting to know, I call it a negative chatterbox. I actually named mine, and I've heard of other people naming theirs as well. My negative chatterbox is Marion. and and I won't say why the name is Marion, but Marion actually is the name of somebody. I will say somebody who has a very negative attitude in my life. And so now my negative chatterbox originated, with this person. And so my negative chatterbox is Marion. Um, get to recognize when when your negative chatterbox is actually one speaking to you. And this is all just about getting to, it's about being able to recognize those negative thoughts are starting to influence your behavior and your thinking. um, that's my first step, like you said, Teresa. How do you recognize your negative chatterbox, your negative stinking thinking?
Are you talking about like the name? Now, my name,
Yeah. I don't know, do you name your negative chatterbox?
named hers, but my negative chatterbox is the devil. Or I call it the enemy, or you could say the inner me, the INNER me, because what I do with my negative chatterbox is I confront it.
Yeah,
So I have given it a name, and I consider it an enemy because it doesn't serve me well.
exactly.
So it just does not serve me well. And I don't know what about that particular phrase has really been very impactful for me for the past couple of years, is really to bring myself to a point of reality. It helps me to say, is this serving me well?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so when I answer that question, yes or no, then that lets me know how I need to move forward with that thought. Is it serving me well? And I refer to it as my enemy, even whether it is coming from an external source or whether it's coming from within. And then my next move is to confront it. So I started thinking, how am I going to handle this? But I actually confront it, and most times the confrontation actually leads to a speedy answer. Now there's a slow route. We can journal and do some other things that we'll talk about later in this podcast. But for me to get a speedy handle on some negative thought processes is to actually confront it. And by that, I mean, if I'm thinking that maybe someone is thinking a certain way about me, or maybe somebody made a comment to me and I thought it was hurtful, or I thought that their tone of voice was, pretty negative and it was impacting me, then honestly, I have just gone to the person and said, hey, you just said that. What does that tone mean? Or, I just heard you say, you said this, but the way I heard it was this, or is this what you're saying? And, I haven't found people really to be offended by it. If the person really cares about you, then they'll turn and say, no, I did, or whatever, but the answer right then.
And what if the negative thought, though, is just originating sort of seemingly out of nowhere? You're sitting at your desk, you're working on a project, and it's not feedback you've received from anybody. It's internal feedback that's sourcing that negative thinking. What do you do then?
I still confront it. You know what? I say to myself, who told you that?
Yeah, exactly.
Did you hear that person say that, or did someone say that to you? Like, say you're feeling like, I'm behind, and my boss, my supervisor, my client, whomever is thinking this and that. I will say to myself, did they say that to you?
Exactly.
Did you actually hear that? Did they actually say that to you? And most times, the answer is no. It's just these internal pressures that, I am putting on myself. And that happens, often. Or say, for instance, if I want to try something new, and that is whether it is in life or in my business, and I'm sitting there sometimes afraid. Yes, I do get afraid, but Rosalind knows I will still jump and look for the parachute later. But I do get afraid, and you're just really nervous about moving forward. Sometimes, Rosalind, I will say to myself, "Who told you today that you could not do that?"
Yeah.
If there's like a business goal or a life goal, and I'm not doing it because I'm telling myself that I can't, then I actually ask myself, who told you that you can't? Or who's trying to block you? And it's no one.
Yeah.
It's like it's imagined.
Yeah.
Because I haven't even done anything yet. I haven't even moved forward. So it's like, who told you that? Who
Yeah.
is, if even if you're thinking that you're going to be in competition with other companies, did that company call you today and tell you that you couldn't? I mean,
Yeah.
honestly. So when you break it down to something that's just so simple, that's one way of getting rid of stinking thinking. See how we started laughing? Because
Yeah.
it's like, that's ridiculous, right? Like, Amazon did not call me today to tell me,
Yeah.
that I couldn't, or
Yeah.
Walmart or whomever. Yeah. So who told you that? Did you actually hear it?
Yeah.
A lot of times that'll kind of snap me anyway, out of it quickly.
Yeah, I think that's the key is first of course is being able to recognize that that stinking thinking is creeping in, that your negative chatterbox is chatting to you. Um, and then the second key is figuring out how to stop it.
Mhm.
And some of the things that can work for people are actually really um developing some sort of stop mechanism. So for
Mhm.
you, it's the question, well, who told you that? It can be as simple as just saying, oh gosh, there's Marion chattering away to me in my brain, telling me I'm not good enough or whatever she's trying to get across to me today. And I better stop this, just say stop. Um, or getting up and moving around. Snap an elastic against you. If you have a terrible habit of just constantly going to letting that negative chatterbox control you, put a one of those thick elastics around your wrist, and when you hear your negative chatterbox trying to control you, snap it. Just give it a snap. That'll snap you out of it pretty darn quick. You know, yes, just stop. And that's the second step I think I use is to, I'm aware, oh, look, that's what's happening. Stop it, somehow. And then the next step, of course, is just to recognize they're just thoughts. Are they really true? Are
Mhm.
they really true? Like Teresa said, did that big company call you and say, "Hey, you, what are you doing? How dare you?" No. So
Exactly.
these are just thoughts. They're not reality. And when you start recognizing that they're just thoughts, you have more control over them.
Mhm.
Because thoughts are not reality, and they can be dissolved,
Mhm.
and replaced with other things.
Right. Right.
So yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
So
then, Rosalind, there are other types of, what we would put into the category of stinking thinking, not just those things that have to do with maybe, your emotions about how someone is talking to you or speaking to you, or um, addressing you, or how or whether or not you can achieve a goal. Sometimes thinking can just be, what, something happened and we're really, we're genuinely sad,
Yeah.
or grieved or depressed for a moment or hurt,
Yeah.
behind something or because of something that is, in reality, this thing did occur. Yes, this person did, mean to speak to
Yeah.
you, this way. Yes, this client has decided that they're not pleased with your services. Yes, there is something going on in your home, and everybody is not happy. And maybe, there's a rough patch or there was an argument, and or maybe there was just an event that occurred, and it has left you with being, sad, hurt, depressed. Yes, maybe you did get terminated from that job, or maybe you did not get selected as the person for that promotion, or in your business. I'm giving just all these real life
Yeah.
examples.
Yeah.
Or in your business, maybe there were several people that or several companies that someone was looking at to work with, and they selected another company. And so now, this has left you in this position where you have these emotions. Well, you know what? Those emotions are real, and it is okay, to be sad, to be depressed, to be hurt, or have a certain negative emotion behind these events. But the thing is that you don't want to stay there,
Yeah.
because this event, this thing, this thought, this whatever has occurred, it is not the sum total of your entire life. So the problem comes in when we have these emotions or feelings and we just get stuck there.
That's right.
And yeah, and we're not able to continue to go on with our life, with our business, with whatever it is that it may be. We're like stuck in this place. Or maybe we do go forward, but we're holding all this negativity. So that kind of, my grandmother used to say, what comes up comes out. So, you have these things inside of you, and now that's spilling over into your life and or your business, and it's impacting those things. So when you get a new client encounter, you're speaking to them, but you have like this attitude, and they feel like, I don't know, I don't think that that's the company, that I want to work with. Or, you're walking around at home, and maybe there's been an apology, but we still can't move forward because just in your day-to-day interaction, you're still thinking about that thing, and that negativity is like spilling out, and so you're not able to recover and move forward. But it's okay to be sad. The thing is to snap out of it. Allow yourself, like, some time. And I don't want to just dwell too long. Like, I can give an example of there was this time where I had this client and I was working, in my professional capacity as a nurse. And, I envisioned that I was going to work with this person not only through the project that we were working on, but then once that was completed, that I was going to continue to work with that person. Well, once I got them through their crisis and that project had ended, that person did not continue to work with me. Well, I mean to tell you, I was just, I don't know, right? But my feelings were just hurt.
Sure.
I felt like she and I had developed this, the owner of that company, it was a female. I thought we had developed this friendship, and that I was just a shoe-in to continue to work with her. Well, it did not happen, and I am telling you, I just was hurt. And so I was speaking with another friend of mine who is also a nurse, and you know what? She said to me, "Girl, you are you are a nurse, and you have 48 hours to go on and cry about this." And she said, "And then I need you to get it together." And I was on the phone going, but
Yeah.
you know what? She was exactly right. She was like, you have the credentials, and there's going to be another client. And guess what? She was correct. But I took my 48 hours.
And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. I to tell clients. I think back to my days working in Hong Kong with new expats who, they've moved to Hong Kong from, say, Scotland, and life in Hong Kong is very different than it is in Scotland, and they start hitting rock bottom, crashing because it's just too different. It's too hard. I just want to stay in my pajamas and eat bonbons all day and stream no mind movies. And I say, that's okay, because you need to acknowledge that your life is different now. You need to learn to live with that, but do it for 24 to 48 hours, and then put your big girl pants on and get out there and start exploring your new, you know,
Absolutely.
and take those thoughts that you're having, those negative, sad thoughts, and honor them. Say, you're right. It's perfectly, I have a right to these thoughts. I have a right to be sad. I have a right to be frustrated. I have a right to be angry. All these negative thoughts. It's not just fear, it's anger, it's frustration, it's sadness. There's all kinds of negative thoughts that you can let sit with you and destroy you, or you can look at them, honor them in the moment, acknowledge them. It's really great if you can get somebody else to acknowledge them. So I encourage you to be social with people, not just on social media. Get out there and be with somebody, talk it over, get it off your chest. You'll be amazed at how much different it feels after that. And you might even come up with some new methods for handling the next time you run into these kind of situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can learn from these sad, frustrated, angry, negative emotions, and learn to do things differently the next time. Learn to honor your feelings. You can learn so much from negative thoughts. We're not saying don't have them. You know, that's just wrong. That's too Pollyanna. The world, especially the COVID world we're living in, we're constantly living in a place of fear and anger and frustration. And you know what? It's okay. It's okay to feel those things. Just recognize them, honor them, and distract yourself with things that do bring you joy, so that you can begin to move on from them, as opposed to wallowing in them. And you don't want your whole life to be like that one day, do you?
Right, exactly, exactly. And sometimes, you know what? Maybe there's, you know, something that has occurred and you're having all of these, negative emotions. Perhaps it's a habit. It has become a habit of yours to really gravitate towards negative things. I mean, I think that all of us, or most of us, let's put it like that, would be able to say that we have that person or that group of people that, these are like, they just, they can find, it can be beautiful and they can find the that one negative thing,
Hmm.
and that is what they choose to talk about all the time. No matter what's going on, they can always find like that negative thing. Well, one thing I would suggest is kind of limiting your exposure, to that person. But that misery loves company. So one thing that Rosalind said was one way to kind of snap yourself out of it, or out of your negative thought process, or kind of out of a sad or grieved mood, is to get around other people. Now, trust me, you don't want, it just doesn't need to be just any old person.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
then you want to go to, people who have that tendency to lift you up,
Yeah.
or to have, more of a, I don't want to say a positive attitude, but people who can take information and lend you a different perspective.
Exactly.
It's kind of like one of those things where when I got married, they said, don't go taking your marriage advice from the women at the beauty salon. You know, because they might not be married, or, you know, from a group of single women, you know, I have great friends, and, you know, I've spoken to people, you know, about marriage, and you don't want to go to those people who are going to say, honey, well, if it were me, I
Yeah.
would so, you know, and you end up throwing out the baby with the dishwasher water, so to speak, with the bath water, so to speak. You want people who are, you know, for your marriage, and who are probably going to listen and then maybe give you a different perspective, as opposed to just saying, that's just one example of just saying, oh, just get rid of them, go home, divorce them right now, or I wouldn't do this, I would, you know, go home and just make the whole household live in hell, so to speak.
Yeah.
Those are the people that you want to be talking to. You want to talk to people who are going to, you know, be a little bit level headed and be able to give you a different perspective, and people who, even if who aren't afraid to say, you know what, I'm gonna have to think about that one, I'm not sure, you know, not that just throw out, they're
Yeah.
just giving them a situation and they're throwing out something negative
Yeah.
right back to you. You know,
Yeah.
that's not who you want to be talking to.
Yeah, and it helps to make sure that that person, you trust that person to tell you the truth too, right? So
Absolutely.
that if in fact you are wallowing about something that is totally stupid to be wallowing about, you've got that person that you can go to who you know will snap you out of it by telling you, by asking you that question that you ask yourself: is it reality? You know,
Hmm.
is it truth?
Yes, yes.
Or come on, lady, you really think that the world is conspiring against you? You know, somebody who's willing to
Right,
talk frankly to you can help too, right?
right.
But as Teresa says, avoid those negative Debbie Downer people who
Hmm.
just, if you go to them, they're going to feed off your negativity, and
Right.
it's going to grow in them, and then it's going to grow in you, and it's going to become this big cycle of all negativity. And that's why I say avoid, when you're feeling like this, avoid turning to Facebook and IG and all of those social media outlets that can make you feel worse instead of better, right?
Yes,
Because
definitely.
you know, you if you Google one thing, and you're going to find a whole bunch of things to support that point of view, but you're going to forget to look for things that support the other point of view. So try
Right.
and avoid that kind of method to control your negative thoughts. Look to a person that's going to support you, but be truthful with you, and who's going to help you feel better in the conversation, not worse, for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, you know, just recognizing that, you know, we can change.
Yeah.
You know, if it is habit for you to walk around with negative thoughts, sometimes you really can change quickly. And believe it or not, I say, well, I've been doing it this way and that's not working.
Yeah.
Change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that seems like so crazy, but okay, I've been doing this way and it's not working. Change.
Yeah.
And so I've literally done that. It's like just change, just like that. You know, sometimes we're looking for all these methods, like a 10-step thing, and it
Exactly.
can literally be just stop, you know, just stop it,
Yeah.
and, you know, go this other direction. Now, I've done some other things, and we will link, you know, we will link this episode, a previous episode where we talked about, you know, negativity and how to handle it. But I, you know, mentioned how I have gone, you know, when I really couldn't just shake it, and I was really, really plagued. with stinking thinking, because I went through like a period, probably like a year or more, even though I am very upbeat and positive. But, it doesn't have to cover every aspect of your life. There was one area of my life that I just had all of these negative thoughts and I just couldn't shake it. And it was just causing problems, it was causing arguments, so on and so forth. And it really wasn't even real. It was just in my head or how I was interpreting it. And, this is good. I hope this will be helpful for people who are in relationships, because this was where mine was. Here I am, I'm married. I've been successfully married for a long time, but I just went through this patch where I just always had this negative thought about what my husband was saying, like, what does he mean by it? Or does he have like a certain tone? Or is he thinking something else? And I won't say that I think, looking back at it, was it really something that he was doing? Or was it really just something from my past? My past, my upbringing, my interaction with men prior to, me getting married, my example of, the family unit, or me, I didn't, without just making this podcast super long, but I mean, I did grow up with my father in my life, and I had a stepfather, but then there was strife in the home. So I think that my godfather divorced my godmother, but he married somebody that was my age. I mean, so I think that all of these things, plus, probably other things, cause like distrust
Yeah.
in me. As far as communication, with men. So my husband, although he was doing like all these great things, I was, kind of in the corner going, does he mean that? What is he up to? What, so. And then when I started getting on his nerves, if he spoke to me in a certain tone, okay, what does that mean? I'm making him be those people kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it just, and so I was having just a whole negative conversation going on in my mind that he wasn't even really a part of, even though in my mind he was. And so to really deal with that, I confronted it, but I started showering myself with positive words. So I had neon cards with affirmations. So I used a lot of different things to help me to really snap out of that. And then I started with my husband. If I had like a thought, I would take time when I thought that I was not crazy, because I was crazy. I was like ready to fight, or yell, or whatever the case was. But when I thought that I could be calm about it, I would always go to him and say, when you said this earlier, did you mean this? Or you were downstairs watching movies and you weren't interacting with me. Are you trying to not spend time with me?
Yeah.
And it broke. I mean, it just seemed like those thoughts started to go away, because each time I confronted it, he was looking at me like, what are you talking about? And literally looked like a 5-year-old innocent child. And he would say, I can remember one day I said, are you trying to avoid spending time with me? And he turned and looked at me like doll's eyes. And he said, well, Teresa, why would I do that? And I turned around. If you could see us on the YouTube channel, I turned around to the enemy and I said, yeah, why would he be? Because when he threw the question back at me, I was stuck. I didn't even know what to say. But in my mind, without talking to him, I was having a full conversation.
Yeah.
So
yeah. You were listening to your negative chatterbox instead of assessing reality. Mm-hmm. And by actually opening up lines of communication with him, you were able to start assessing reality. One of the things you touched on early on in what you were just saying is you also started developing sort of an affirmation practice for yourself. And that's a great tool to try to start seeing the positives in yourself instead of always listening to that negative chatterbox, is to develop an affirmation habit. And, you know, another simple way is to try and develop an attitude of gratitude so that when negative things do come your way, I'm not saying ignore them. I'm not saying throw them out with the dishwasher. What I'm saying is you can say, yeah, that was really bad. Um, Today something else good happened to me, and so that you're changing your focus from listening to your negative chatterbox to trying to focus on something else that good happened to you today or this month, or and it can be as simple as I saw the most vivid, it's autumn now as we're recording this, so I saw the most vivid, beautiful crimson red tree, and I'm grateful to have had that beauty in my life. And just by clicking that away from the negative thought to something else that's more positive can stop that negative thought in its tracks, right? So the affirmations, the gratitude, those things can just stop those negative. It's not that they're never going to exist again. It's just that when they do start popping up, you have a tool that you can turn to instead of um, focusing only on that negative thing. You have other methods to bring positivity back into your life, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I can give a perfect example. Just 2 weeks ago, I actually had a car accident. I haven't even mentioned it to you, Rosalind, because I've moved on to the positive, right? But I had a car accident, but I mean, it wasn't, I don't even really want to call it a car accident, but that's like what it was. But the lady and I, we were both merging into the same lane, and we just like scraped one another, like at our front wheels. Okay. So not even like the full car, or, we weren't really driving fast because we were merging into a lane and we were approaching the intersection. So we were really, really slow. So I mean, it ended up with just minor scratches on both of our cars. However, it was still an accident. And but when we got out of the car, look, just what I just said. When we got out of the car, because we both just got out of the car, and it was like, oh my goodness, like what happened? And you know we looked at our cars, we called the police, but before the police got there, we were like, you know what, we're just thankful that neither one of us was hurt. We weren't on the highway, we were really on kind of a neighborhood, a street where there were homes. And we weren't hurt, and the damage was minor. Our car, neither of our cars had to be towed, no ambulance had to be called. So I just kind of took it as it could have been worse.
Yeah.
It really could have been worse. In the area that I live, in Georgia, I mean, there are like accidents, like every day accidents. And I mean, it was just really minor. I mean, so probably have to have, a paint job, of course, and whatnot. But we're both fine. We were not injured. So I'm really thankful for that. So that was a negative. Now I could have been, oh my God, my car, this, and this, and oh, this is going to be an infringement upon my time because now I'm going to have to take my car in. I need a car to drive while they're repairing my car, and so therefore, you know what I mean? I'm going to have to get a rental car. So there might be some type of an expense. There could be a deductible. I could be fretting about all of those things and just really upset and wound up, but I'm not. I'm just grateful that we both were fine. Um, Neither of us got a ticket.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, I don't know, just kind of a freak accident. Even the police officer was like, now what happened? Because I mean, we were like, well, So anyway, So yeah, practicing gratitude. I kind of try to apply, when something bad happens, like how could it have been worse or could it
Yeah,
have been worse? And
that's right.
absolutely it
That's
could.
right. That's right. And also uh, trying to learn from your the negative situation. Maybe not with your fender bender thing, but there are a lot of negative things that happen from to people that actually you can learn so that the next time you're faced with that situation, um, you know what's going to happen and you know how to handle it. If you take that negative situation and just want to dwell on it without um, trying to figure out what you could do better the next time or what you can learn from that negative situation. Gosh, for the life of me right now, I can't think of an example. Can you think of an example of that sort of situation, Teresa, where um, it's typical. So here's a good one. You set your three top goals for the day. You end up only achieving one. You spend the whole night in your head berating yourself because you only achieved one goal. Um, Now you can continue to berate yourself that you've only achieved that one goal instead of the three you had set out for yourself that day, or you can just take a moment and assess. So why didn't I achieve those other two goals? How important were those other two goals? Um, what why did I end up spending so much time on the first goal? So instead of spending the first half hour you're in bed that night playing this, oh, you idiot, you didn't get this done, you didn't get that done, playing with your negative chatterbox with your stinking thinking, say, wait a second here. Okay, let's learn from this. Tomorrow, what can I do differently so that I do achieve those goals, right?
Mm.
So that's an important um, part of stinking thinking is take that thinking that obviously if you're obsessing about it, there's something there that you need to figure out and learn from, I think.
Mhm.
So yeah.
So, to further what you're saying, so what I have started doing, and I love it, and I recommend it to my clients, is I ask my clients to take a book, whether it's a composition book, a journal book, whatever is, the color that they like, the ink pen that they like. And at the end of the night, before they go to bed and before I go to bed, write down what I did right. So
Yes.
I have I just wrote on the front of it what I did right. And then in there I just start listing the things that I did do right for the day. So instead of beating myself up about that missed opportunity or that thing that I did not complete, what did I actually do right? But the thing that you can learn though from your example is just time management.
Yes.
So then that is just evaluate. So if I gave myself three things that I was going to do for the day, but I only completed one of them, what happened? Was it time management? Did I not get up early enough? Did I not get started early enough? Or were the three things that I listed things that were really unrealistic to complete
Yeah.
within the time frame in the first place? That is like a huge thing. We talked about stress in one of our other episodes, but I think that that's like another one of those subtle examples of stress. Sometimes we give ourselves things to do that it's just unrealistic to do. Like I live, in Georgia, and I am more like in the city, so it is difficult. I tell people all the time, you can't even go to 4 grocery stores in a day. I mean, because there's a lot of traffic. Everything seems to be far away from the other thing. You know what I mean? It might be 30 miles here, 30 miles to us is that's like, oh, that's not that far. but it can take you an hour to 2 hours to drive 30 miles, depending upon the time of the day. So it's not possible to go all these places in one day. So, did you give yourself three things that were really
That's
unrealistic
right.
for you to do in a day by yourself in the first place?
Yeah,
So that's kind of the learning curve, is to really evaluate why it was that you weren't able to complete those
that's
things,
right.
or for the example that you gave. So that's a learning. Or sometimes maybe something happens. Hey, it could be if we went to the accident. I mean, this is not what occurred, but maybe you are talking on the phone. Maybe you're driving too fast, maybe, whatever, and you don't see something. Or like, I have my two office assistants, my two dogs. Sometimes they want to drive and go in the car with me, and I'll take them for a ride. But I'm very conscientious I just take them down the street into the park, and kind of like in areas where I can drive really slow and they can look out the window and all that kind of stuff. But I could have had them out on the highway with me. They're walking from the front to the back. They want to sit on my, put their paw on my shoulder and all that kind of stuff. Okay, and then I end up having an accident. Then maybe I need to. That could be a learning
Yeah,
thing. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
Maybe I needed to slow down. Maybe I didn't need to have the dogs in the car. Maybe I shouldn't have been, talking on the phone with my hand up, like, to where I can't really see well, or whatever the case may be. So those are things that we can learn from. Yes, maybe something occurred. It was our fault, but then how can we learn from this?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's really your choice whether you wallow in the negative situation that happened, whether that was you didn't meet your goals for the day or whether you were in a minor fender bender. You can choose to um, just constantly focus on that negativity, or you can choose to learn from it,
Snap
to
out of
stop it, to snap
it.
out of it. That's right. It's really, really, really a choice that we make every single day, whether we're going to live with our negative chatterbox controlling us or whether we're going to learn how to control it. So I think that's a huge thing. I mean, we didn't even get to talking about how negativity can be a symptom of a lack of self confidence and what to do about that. But we do have a whole podcast on how to grow your self confidence. And so that is another way to help you snap out of, to help you um, learn not to be only friends with your negative chatterbox.
Mhm.
You can grow your self confidence. But check out our podcast on self confidence that's already been released, and the tips of growing your self confidence can help you learn to control your negative thinking. But it's really about your choice. You choose whether you're going to live in negative with negative thoughts all the time, or whether you're going to um, learn from them, grow from them, um, recognize them as just thoughts and feelings and not who you are.
Mhm.
It's really up to you. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so,
And
so I
then,
think,
what if Rosalind, if something has happened, and this thinking has just gotten a grip on you, and you just
yeah.
don't seem to be able to really let it go, and it's impacting you to the point that it is making you really feel bad about yourself. Um, what do you think about that? What are some things that we can do to combat that?
Well, I think first of all, I'm going to just start this with saying if you are in a really dark place, you need to get help. You need to reach out and get help. These tips and methods and the conversation Teresa and I are having today are more about sort of your negative humdrum day to day negative thoughts. They're not about the deep dark negative place that some people are um, are in, and people who have that major deep depression, they need help. They need help beyond the scope of a podcast, right?
Right. Mhm.
So I'll start with that. But I think that, overall, if you do a lot of things to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, that you're nurturing your self confidence, doing things that make you feel good, like affirmations, practicing gratitude, volunteering, like look for things that bring positivity into your life. Um, I think that if you're able to do some of those things, you will find that that stinking thinking um, becomes less controlling, right?
Mhm.
What do you think, Teresa?
Yeah, if you are not, if you are in a position where you are not um, one of those people or in a situation where you can push your way through,
Yeah,
then most certainly we encourage you to seek help. Rosalind and I are not presenting this podcast as clinicians or, in any way that we that would take the place of a licensed therapist or your physician if you need that type of help. What we're talking about here is just that everyday stinking thinking that all of us actually encounter, and it doesn't always mean that we need to go to a doctor, but we do need to develop tools that will help us to be able to push through and to go forward and have a successful, thriving, and joyous, happy life. And that is what we are always looking for. So Rosalind and I are just ecstatic that you are here with us on this journey, and we're sharing with you the things that we have used. So, what I like to focus on is really just solidifying like my own self identity
yes,
and my own self worth, and showering myself with self love. That is, it's not cliche. It's really, really important. And when we can define ourselves and really shower ourselves with self care, then just the better we're going to be. I mean, that's like your foundation. To me,
that's
is
right.
my grandmother used to talk about how, if you build a house on a shaky foundation, the house will fall. So you have to have like a great foundation. And sometimes I think that we just miss that, in everything in life. If your foundation is good, then some of the things that we hear on the media, what's happening, at work or next door or wherever it is that's happening, when things happen, they don't really knock us down. It's like my grandmother say, like that tree that's planted, those roots are down deep. So we're talking about this foundation that has been laid, and that foundation is strong. So we're not putting it on sand, we're putting like that concrete foundation down there. So when you take time to take care of yourself and show yourself, love, respect, and all these types of things, then it helps you to repel those other things that are coming towards you. So taking time to love on yourself, to nurture yourself, to allow yourself to enjoy the things that you actually enjoy, whether that's colors, sounds, baths, fragrances, clothes, whatever it is, getting your nails done, as long as these are things that you can afford. But, we can all afford to, look, we can do a whole podcast on my self care tips. but
In fact, we have.
yes, so
Yeah,
we can afford to have that long hot bath or take an extra long shower if you're a shower person, or getting a candle. It can be inexpensive, but have a great fragrance that's going to be calming and soothing to you. Straightening up your area. Some which Rosa and I were talking about that before we started the podcast. Sometimes just having a lot of clutter around can really just kind of keep your mood down. So, straightening up your area, getting or becoming organized, in your thoughts or your ideas or your goals or things that you want to do. Sometimes that causes frustrations just because we're not organized. There are things we want to do, but we're really not organized. There are amazing benefits for writing things down.
Yeah.
Even if I don't care if you put it on a piece of paper towel, but taking something and writing down, this is what I want to do, and then crossing them off, even if it's just little things like go and get the mail. I mean, though I'm telling you, just the act of writing things down and crossing them off, it uplifts the mood because it makes you feel like you have accomplished something, even
Right.
if it is small. Wash the dishes, vacuum the floor, even though those tasks might be tedious. But when you can look back at a list and see that you have drawn lines through something, that can really be motivational, make you feel like, oh, okay, I've gotten it. But nurture yourself, take care of yourself, give yourself good food, good water, sleep. There's nothing wrong with taking a nap. Now, I know when we were children, we wanted to just see everything, and we used to cry when they said we had to take a nap. But there's nothing wrong with taking a nap. Now, don't overdo it and take the nap and then sleep the whole rest of your day away, and then get to the time when it's time for you to go to bed and say, oh, I didn't accomplish. I mean, set your little alarm clock. I'm going to give myself 30 minutes. I'm going to give myself 1 hour. I do that sometimes in the middle of my business day. I'm feeling tired, or my thought process is, getting kind of, stalled, where I'm feeling like I'm not thinking clearly. And I'm like, I need a nap, and I'll set my alarm for 30 minutes. And it seems like I'm able to refresh. So
Yeah. So I think that we've talked a lot about stinking thinking, and I think the things I want our listeners to take away is, first, get to know and recognize that you're having stinking thinking. Name it. Name that negative voice in your head if you have to. Develop some sort of method to just stop it in its tracks. And then turn to some of these other things like affirmations, gratitude, self care, be true to yourself, do things that build your self confidence. All of these things will help control that negative thinking. And so I don't know that we have a whole lot more to add at this point. I just want you guys to take away that it's normal to have stinking thinking. It's normal to have a negative chatterbox. It's okay to honor those negative feelings when it's necessary, but don't let them control your life. You choose, does stinking thinking control me, or do I control it? And keep that in mind as you move forward with your days.
yes, absolutely. So thank you guys for being here with us for another episode of the Relentless Transitions podcast. We are so thankful to have you here with us on our journey. And if you have some ways that you have been able to combat stinking thinking, then we would love to hear from you, either on our YouTube channel, Relentless Transitions. You can leave us a comment, or certainly you can send us an email at relentlesstransitions@gmail.com. Thank you so much for being here with us. Continue on to be relentless and fearless, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for listening, everyone.